Welcome to another episode of Unpacking. Now, tonight we'll be discussing the lovely topic of culture. Tonight we'll be delving into the new age of culture versus yesteryear, the influence that culture has had versus yesteryear, the road ahead, and also the constant change in our culture. Now, of course, before we dive into this, I wanted to note, of course, on Unpacking is that all of what we say here are our opinions and not facts. And of course, before I delve into the lovely episode, I have to ask my co-host how we're feeling about the topic of culture tonight, guys.
Culture is an ever-changing thing, from the times and what's happening in and around us. So I look forward to delving into it. It's not as, I doubt it will be as everything as sex, but we'll try to keep it interesting.
I mean, as long as you keep it interesting, you can be everything as anything, you know what I mean? Talking about space.
It's culture. Talking about it overall, it's going to be, it's going to be an interesting topic.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
But how about you, though, Alex? How you feel about talking about culture? How you're feeling about that?
You said it sounds like it's going to be, interesting because, as Josh pointed out, the culture changes frequently. So, a lot of diversity. So I just think it's going to be a very good topic to just explore.
Alright. Positive vibes. Well, let's just dive right into it. Now, of course, discussing the new age of culture. How has culture affected our lives in this new age? The age that we're in now, the post-millennium, the millennium people, all of that. How has culture really affected any of it? What can you say about that?
Nowadays, things kind of just changes. Like, you're looking at things that weren't accepted back then are accepted now.
Like what? Things like what? What has changed so much about our culture that things are...
I think we spoke about some of these in...
Of course we would have. Definitely.
Yeah, we did. We spoke about.
But what are some obvious changes though? Some obvious changes that happened because of the change in culture.
The few taboo topics that people normally shy away from, which are now widely accepted and ready to be talked about. Back in the day, as we said, everybody was more conservative, so nobody was really talking about sex, all that. But now it's like one of the hottest topics out there. I mean, right now, sex is selling everything.
It's selling everything. What about you, Josh? What have you noticed about how much culture has affected how we live now? What are some things that jumped out with you?
Well, in relation to the whole matter of culture, especially like whatever affects the US does affect us and the wider Caribbean.
Was it always like that?
Yeah, I believe so, because of the major part they play in the formation of our laws.
Oh.
Yeah, and even funding for various things. So where the money is, the power is, and we saw a shift in how Jamaica did business and like litigation when China started to push more funds, especially by way of infrastructure, roadwork and development into Jamaica as opposed to the US. But for me, a major change would be in our culture would be the whole identification of oneself. You can now be binary.
Non-binary,
and you can now be very openly gay, get to marry persons of the same sex, get to marry yourself, get to marry animals. Things like those have definitely been a change in culture. Not sure if it's for the better, but
I mean, who really determines if it's for the better?
The individual themselves.
I guess you are who you are and you live the life you want to live. I think that's ultimately up to whoever is doing it that can, say if it's good or better or worse for them. But of course, one major thing in culture I've definitely noticed is how much more available things have become. differently from back in the day. Normally people would have to live in the library to be able to, really properly put together an assignment. Now everything is at your fingertips. People are able to search for this and that online. You have places like Amazon, this online store. You can get anything from anything you want. It's just right there. You can get as long as you have the money. And of course, the whole new age of what is electronical. You have things like PayPal. You have things like Uber Eats. There's so many things that have changed from back in the day, like when summertime like this back in the day, of course, you're looking forward to spend that long summer holiday, probably watching some Watch and Win. If any of you here watch and Win, I don't know. And that was it for me before, I got accustomed to cable. And now people are now being able to walk around. What's that, Alex? You're gonna say?
I used to normally just see it on TV and like skip it.
You skipped Watch and Win on TV?
It was annoying as it is. I just now
Okay, Josh, did you watch and Win? Do you even know what Watch and Win is?
It sounds familiar, but it doesn't.
Wow. Okay. Right. Well, I watch TV. Watch and Win.
Yeah, I think I watch out with like the bidding thing.
No, well, not bidding. Watch and Win was more likely something that what the hell? Watch and Win was more likely like let's say for instance we're watching like a cartoon and they were like,
oh yeah. Stop. I remember. In the summertime when we were home.
Right, in the summertime. Right.
Cartoons.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. So it really and truly, people, of course, you could win prizes based on who called in first. The line was always busy, by the way. But of course,
oh, you tried? I never tried.
What do you mean? Listen to me. Watching Win was my life at one point in time, and I'd just be there, like watching the TV, and it was not normally with things like when I say back in the day, I mean like this was like when I was around I must have been probably around 5 years old, because I think that's when TVJ rolled it out at the time. Putting it out there for people to be able to see it and stuff like that. But it was the only channel that had it. And of course, me looking at it now, in retrospect, it was to keep children engaged. Because the questions that they would ask within those cartoons are things you definitely have to be paying attention to. So even though you're actually watching the cartoon, it's good that you actually were paying attention to the plot. Or if any movie came out, because they normally had like a little evening movie with it as well, and you'd add that onto it. But I'm speaking to that because of how much culture has changed. That people are now what our ages would have been back then that are now would have not known anything like that. And we would feel the need to pass judgment saying that they missed out, or they don't know what type of life that they're living, or they're not living it the way we would have. But I think the new age, having the tablets, YouTube at your fingertips now, I think it's just, how much culture changes, because I'm sure before us, our parents would have said, oh, you didn't remember when people went outside and played stickball and all these foolishness that, we probably didn't get accustomed to, because we were more into the cup noodle lifestyle and the DVD and the portable, this type of thing. So, it just keep on changing. And I think that's one thing to pay attention to about what life will be like probably in 2050. It'll be so archaic that the things we're talking about now seems like, a ghost town away. But comparing it to yesteryear, right? Because we were just basically comparing it to the yesteryears that happened before. If you were supposed to be somebody living in this time, let's say you were around 7 or 8 or that young age at this time, would you think versus when you lived before at that age, do you think it would be easier for you now? Do you think it would be an easier space for you to be able to exist in terms of school, life, anything?
I wouldn't necessarily say easier, because while some things are easier now in terms of the advancement in technology, it doesn't necessarily mean that life itself would have become easier, because with the advancement comes problems as well. Its own set of problems that we have had to deal with. Take for instance the whole sharing of information. Yes, it's great, having it at your fingertips, but when it is that very same ease and access to information is detrimental to the health and well-being of persons accessing that said information, it causes an issue, and then you have to deal with it. Music becoming more accessible, porn, information in general, it's not necessarily good. It also made people lazy. So plagiarism.
Yeah, that's on a rampage, of course, definitely. Because people, talking about plagiarism, that's a good point to land on. Because these days, like I said, we would normally have to go to the library to really build our projects from the ground up. You know this. If you went through that, you would have definitely known that. But these days, you can just find a little piece of one thing, piece of one thing, piece of one thing, and just put together one big thing and say, okay, this is mine. That's mine. So you just go mark that. Mind you, I think they look at it like it's a more, which is the millennials coined this. Work smarter, not harder. But ultimately, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it is smarter, yes, in some sense, because you're not stressing yourself out. But sometimes going through that level of stress helps to learn a lot more, if you follow what I'm saying to you. If you look into the idea of putting together a project through, bits and pieces of plagiarism, you'll always follow that type of lifestyle. That's exactly how you'll grow yourself up to be. You'll believe everything needs to be easy and that nothing needs to be hard, which means you try less at things that require your full amount of potential, if you follow what I'm saying to you. If you train yourself in that way to become that type of person, you're kind of robbing yourself of a good opportunity of becoming an industrious person. So from my opinion with that, what culture has changed has kind of made people lazy, just like what you said. Definitely, I completely believe that. Yeah. What would you say about the influence of the new culture has had on the people nowadays? What type of influence have you seen?
Well, what I've seen is that we have had an increase in image. Our person to now everybody wants to be an internet sensation, an Instagram sensation. They simply dress next to naked to get a lot of likes and followers, as well to become an influencer through the use of what God has blessed you with, as a means of getting ahead in life. So the culture has moved.
Right. The culture has definitely paved that type of way, because people didn't just get up and want to do that. The culture influenced that, maybe it's best you show a little bit more cleavage, take a couple bit more photos at this hotel that you can't afford, and post these things online, and people will like you. This will make you money. The culture definitely influences that.
True. That is true. And another thing I would say as well in terms of culture shift, not just in relation to that side, in terms of social media, but even in our own way of dressing, culture has a lot to do with that. And what we put into our bodies is fast changing. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this is the new culture now, to have everything grown in a lab instead of growing from God's green earth.
Right.
To plug in hormones into animals, so that what would normally take
a couple more,
taking a couple of weeks to.
Because the culture has now influenced people to be so avaricious. They want to be able to be getting things now. The demand has become inhumanly high, because when you look at the amount of waste that we produce as humans versus the demand came from how the culture wanted us to behave. Like, for instance, you see on TV or advertisements influence culture. Instead of putting down that, you can have like a small piece of chicken for a kid's meal, people are now advertising 3 pieces. Your child needs to eat up because you're a growing child or whatever it is. You put pressure on those farmers now to inject those chickens with hormones to make them grow even faster. Have you ever seen those videos where those chickens are so heavy they can't even stand up?
No.
Like, they're so heavy. Well,
I'd rather not know what I'm putting in my mouth, because I'm very conscious already, and I have a very limited array of food that I eat, so I stay away from said videos that would make me think.
And even that videos, that even in those videos, culture has influenced as well, to have this whistleblower thing where people are putting outlandish stuff out there. They're uncovering things. The new culture has definitely influenced that, to where people have the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matter. These things we're feeling oppressed with now, were always happening. They're nothing new, to be honest. But because we've gotten this new age of speak up and your voice matters and that type of thing, people
which came with the access, the
exactly, which came with the access of Twitter and stuff like that, and social media. I believe that culture has been shaped by what social media is. I think when the culture started to shift from what we know was when Facebook was on the rise. I think the last remnants of what our culture was died with high five. You probably would. I'm not sure if you know what those things are. Cause you not really have a social media, but
I was,
where's
I,
Alex that should be joining in on this? Where is he? Where's Alex
was
that
on
should be
a,
joining on this? But yeah, man, high five was the dying out period of
I had
our,
to go to an internet cafe to access it because I didn't have internet at my home at
And
that
even
point.
those days, man, I remember the other day, Josh, where somebody was playing a dial-up sound that, and I'm like, what? So normally you have to use the dial-up at home, and when you use the dial-up at home, you can't use the telephone because it takes over everything.
One or the other.
My God, you guys are going back way too far.
No, because no.
Dial-up.
Listen. Dial-up was
Dial-up?
what our culture was. Listen, it was. When you heard about high-speed internet,
I never had a problem. No. Dial-up, bruh. No. I remember there might be a point in time where, you might be on the, what do you call it? You might be on the computer,
right?
and somebody probably, all of a sudden you can't use it anymore. Yeah, I only heard stories about that.
No, man, I definitely use that.
Your mother, they say, come up, your mother gone on the phone when you're on the computer. No, I don't think I ever had that problem though.
Definitely, I definitely use dial-up. Without a doubt, I did.
I think, alright. I know we were both at the same starting point. I'm quite sure about that. But I am quite sure you were probably back in the Stone Age when I was in the yeah, I was kind of.
Well, guess what? It made me appreciate a lot of things. I can definitely give you that. It definitely did, and I don't regret it for 1 minute, not 1 minute.
But you'll be surprised the amount of change that happens within a year.
That's true. When I had dial-up, it wasn't too long before we actually got what you call net speed internet. It was slightly faster, like the first type of things you would use. And I remember even with that, you had a lot of lagging as well, because that compared to what we have now, it's very slow. Very, very, very. That would be very, very slow. Things nowadays, people are having packages when have 50 megabytes. 50 megabytes is very fast. Back then, people used to advertise 5 megabytes per second as very lightning fast.
25 megabytes is very fast.
I mean, that's how it was being advertised back then. And like I said, these were things that influenced culture, because I remember when the 5 megabytes was being unveiled, they used Asafa Powell to promote that, because he was the fastest man at the time. So it was like a faster internet, that type of thing. So, he, of course, his influence in culture, given the fact that, he was the world's fastest man, they used those things to definitely, put on that type of show. But what other influences are you seeing that culture has done within the world? What other influences are we seeing? Anything else?
Consumerism, materialism.
Right.
Consumer debt has increased significantly. Now it's like second nature to think that you are always going to have payments, monthly payments, be it for car, unsecured loan, for house, for carnival wear. Apparently people take out loans to get their carnival costume. I came to learn that, and
That's true.
came, because the culture would have shifted back when my grandmother was in her prime.
Exactly, yeah.
Loans were not seen as something to be accessed so easily. It is in dire emergencies or absolute needs. People are taking out loans to buy the new iPhone, kind of thing. Take out payday loans to go on vacation. The fact that you're taking out a loan means that you ought not to
you
be
can't afford
going anywhere to lay down your lazy body.
Yeah.
You need to be at work. You need to be generating income. So that has and it's so much easier for you to get a loan to buy something that's going to depreciate than it is to get a loan to start a business. And it's sad, but what humans and what people have not been realizing is that the banks want that kind of thing. They want you to continuously be dependent upon them, because when you borrow from them, they earn exponentially more from your payments, and we don't look at the real cost of these things. what it is to pay something 9% over a 5 or 7 year period, how much more you're paying added to what you'd have borrowed. I have been grappling with this and working my way out, and as soon as I am free, I am never to return. That isn't something to play around.
And you're right, you've seen a rise in these deaths with these people and all these things going on with these young people, you know. People getting themselves tangled up in things that they really should be getting tangled up in. I mean, that nonsense of, because I do know of persons, not necessarily my associates, who will take loans out just for the part of the purpose of carnival wear, like you said, or to get phones that they definitely can't afford. And that's basically the culture that social media has forced upon to them, that, you know, you have to definitely be doing this, you have to definitely be doing that to be seen as socially acceptable.
And let's not even talk about the credit card, the shifting the culture when
exactly, yeah,
came into existence. You know,
like when you had a credit, people use a credit card as a prerequisite to date somebody back in the day. Like you see, if you were somebody that had a credit card back, not saying that people have access to credit cards now like rampant, because they don't really. Maybe the limit might be a bit low, but you get what I'm saying. A lot of things have changed, read that. They're now giving, you know, things to people who, you know, can basically show an ID. And like you said earlier, the banks love when you're able to depend on them. So they have no problem issuing that out. And people are less likely to look into themselves to realize that, listen, I really can't afford this, and I should not be taking this upon my head right now. I really shouldn't be doing it. But because their friends are doing it, that's the next thing, to the influence of your friends that social media has put onto them, that has forced a life upon to you. People find it harder to say no to things they really cannot deal with. People find themselves in situations that really and truly have them spinning out of control just because, you know, they want to be seen as they're fitting in. People will do things like you said, for fame. They want the 15 minutes of fame, like the first thing you were saying. They will do things online just to get those laughs, to get that following, to get that everything. That wasn't something done back in the day. Back in the day, when people would be doing things that are influential, it's normally things like, you know, trying to win the spelling bee, or trying to be an outstanding person in sports, or trying to do well in your academics. It was never trying to be the biggest movie star. It was never trying to be the biggest, in quotations, influencer. It was never trying to be the biggest promoter, anything like that. Nothing at all like that was whatever. But social media, I believe, was the proper shaping of what the culture has become now. Definitely. What do you guys foresee with the road ahead as it relates to culture? What do you see changing? What do you see evolving into something else? What are your predictions?
Well, in the world that Elon Musk is envisioning, soon and very soon we will have cars that fly. You know, subway that is no longer on railways but on the ground, and you can hop onto a rocket or spaceship, whatever they call it, and head on out of Earth to Mars for a vacation. Yeah? The culture that we have is one where innovation is encouraged, appreciated. Right. It's back in the day when you come with something that's out of the norm, people were a little apprehensive. We're more open-minded now.
So that's definitely something that culture has changed. You know, we become more open-minded people.
Open-minded, right? So that has worked to our advantage and against us. As with everything, there's good and there's bad.
Yes.
Even in education, we have seen from the shifting in culture that there has been additional courses, revamping of certain courses as well to incorporate the new. So things like colleges, universities offering courses in forex trading, cryptocurrency, entrepreneurship, even though the people who are teaching the entrepreneurship class don't own a business or they would have failed that business, so maybe they're teaching you what not to do. But nonetheless, things like this, fashion designing, is the culinary arts, those things that weren't necessarily seen as being of value or much importance, we're realizing now that there is more space for it. You can go and get a degree or a diploma, certificate in those odd in air quotations, odd fields of study. Yeah. So that too would have shifted, even in Jamaica or culture in terms of the way how we get around. That has changed drastically. Almost everybody and their mama driving now. Most of our country roads now have an alternate route which costs you a pretty penny, and that keeps on raising ever so often by way of the tolls I make reference to. There are a lot of things that have changed, shifting in Parliament. Never has it been seen or heard of such a majority, at least not in my lifetime, where every law that comes to that's tabled can be passed by the JLP because they have the majority. The PMP, the opposition, is not so strong, so that affects the shaping of the country, because laws do affect culture.
Yeah,
and culture affect laws.
Yeah, they definitely do. Seeing those increases in gas prices, I'm wondering if the demand changed over the years or something, because
the gas price, because I was doing a bit of check into that, because the last time I went and filled my tank and the gas attendant told me the cost, I nearly slapped him. I was utterly surprised. I almost didn't have enough money to cover it, and I was wondering, as I would have asked him, what exactly would have happened if I told you that I didn't.
I don't have enough money.
And he was like, well,
I can imagine that now, Josh.
Imagine you say, keep your license.
One day, it's for 2,506. I don't have $6, so.
That should be fine. $6 would be fine. We were talking about $1,500 more than what I would have usually paid, right? And I wasn't expecting it, but I've grown so accustomed to, when I pull up to the tank, to just say, full it, 87 full, no top up, because this top up thing is a waste. Many people don't know that most of the fuel that you tell them to top up gets pulled back into the pump, because once it's filled, there's nowhere else for it to go, and just wasting your money.
Wow.
Yeah, so I stopped.
Speak, and for the people can hear you on the podcast that this is a thing, because a lot of people who drive would love to know that.
And the gas stations, they intentionally do it because they are aware your vehicle can take so much and no more gas. What you're topping up, really? They are aware that especially, and why you are encouraged not to buy fuel during the daytime, especially when it is hot, is because it evaporates. So when they're there and they're putting it in, once it comes out of the pump, then of course the figures rise on the pump, because it's showing that fuel is leaving, but you're not getting it. You're really not getting it, and this has been validated by a number of sources, and I've seen it for myself. So ensuring that you have correctly inflated tires, ensuring that you are buying your fuel at cooler times in the day, early in the morning when the sun has set, are better for your fuel efficiency, not braking so harshly. You know that you're going to be coming up to a stop. Why are you speeding to the stoplight? It makes absolutely no sense, and it's costing your pockets. And I rent my vehicle, so I have to be mindful of these things, and I try to educate my clients who when I give you with a full tank, I expect a full tank, and I am helping you to save money too because gas isn't cheap.
Absolutely. Point to know. Definitely good point to know. So for the road ahead, what do I predict? Well, I predict that yeah, you'll have your decent flying cars. You'll probably have um probably a different way of living because I think new culture has definitely changed how the house is designed. So I think architecture will definitely change a lot, like it always has with culture. Always has from you have Roman days, Greek days till now. It's always changed a bit. I think the things we indulge in will definitely change a bit more in terms of the many different poisons. And when I say poisons, I mean stuff like alcohol and drugs and all manner of stuff that can bring you to World 5 or whatever it is. Those things will definitely change a lot more. I think how we access information will become a lot more different. I think that Apple is coming out with the eyeglass sometime later this year that will be able to, give you a screen in front of your eyes and stuff like that, which is a very big step for technology. So I do see by at least 2050, we should be operating in a very, very different way. A very, very different way and paying a lot of more money for things we probably don't need, but need to pay to be able to keep up with the times. Absolutely. But how are you dealing with the constant change that is culture though? For real. How are you dealing with that? How is anyone dealing with the constant change that is culture? Like the way jobs are now being issued, what you have to do on those jobs. Yeah.
In the same way that I deal with any other change in my life. You come to the realization that if you're not in a position to change it, then what you are in control of is your response to the change. And you can choose to see how to make it work for you, or you can just decide to be a dick, and that gets you absolutely nowhere. It's easier said than done to be open-minded, to welcome change, but you are better for it when you try to work around what you have been dealt, the hand that you have been dealt. I think it was Beyonce that said, make lemonade out of limes, something sweet out of something rather sour. So yeah, that's how I view the change. And I also make sure that in my own identity, it's not found or lost in the changing tide. I am who I am, and I will continue to be who I am. Yes, I will change as a person, whether for good or for worse, but it certainly won't be solely dependent on.
Would you say culture has changed anything with you?
Not that I can think of right off the bat. No. Maybe a couple of slangs that I may use.
But like pre.
I've never told anybody that I'm preing you before. I've heard it used.
No, I mean, pre means different. Like pre means, like I saw that, or did you see it?
No, I understand what it means, but I just don't use it.
Okay.
Some of the terms that I use, like jumping jellyfish. People wonder what?
Well, I don't know if that's in culture. I think
that's not in culture, right? No, it certainly isn't. But that's what I'm saying.
But I tell you something though. You see, if we are influential here, it could become a part of culture because some things said in culture right now, well, some things that come from culture right now did come from the influencers. You have a lot of things that people would say, like people would say, like what I feel away. Mm-hmm. You say I feel away. Some people definitely, contrast that to Grace Hamilton on her rant about what happened at the Walmart and stuff like that. So you realize people, anytime they say I feel away, they reference back to that. So definitely, culture definitely does have that thing. So if we are influential here, you saying jumping jellyfish can actually become a thing. It actually can. It doesn't matter how outrageous it sounds. We just realize the level of influence that social media has. And of course, even though this is on the platform of YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify, it still has an influence because people use Spotify for music, yes. But music, which is something we'll delve into at a different time, but music does have a very, very large influence on what the culture is right now. Very, very large. When it comes to things like, living outside of your pocket, living outside of your means, music definitely influences most of those things. And I think it'd be good for, I'm not saying use music for the best things ever because music is going to always be music, right? You don't tell people what to do. People choose to do what they want to do. So you can't blame it on the music. But at the same time, if you realize your music has a certain level of influence, you should try to, you know, try to lead people the right way. You know, if you get what I'm saying. Like you could quote something from Miss Knowles talking about, you know, make lemonade. That was something positive. You know, at least I never said something like Becky with the good hair
Oh, no,
or something like that.
that would be out of character.
The character. Yeah, but what is Alex saying on the consent change? How is the consent change affecting you, Alex? How is it affecting you in terms of your life and things that's been going on around you?
So, guys, you know how I am, though. I'm like adaptable to any situation, so it doesn't really affect me all that much overall. I'm just going with the motion because in this society, we all know things are going to change. Things are always advancing. So it's not ever a point where, you know, it affects me negatively. Positively, maybe in some ways, because when things get, you know, a little bit freer in some sense, you know, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm really like thinking back from before and thinking, all right, the way how I lived then versus the way how I live now, which should I really go back to? I'll throw that question to you, Ryan. Which would you really want to be in? The past or the present?
I would want to go to the future. I can appreciate what the past was. The only reason why I want
there is no option to go to the
no,
future.
Alright, there's no so here are the past.
You want to live in the now, or would you rather go back to?
I'd rather live in the now.
25 years?
Rather live in the now. If the only way I would choose to go to the past is if I'm able to go back to the past with the knowledge I have now. Only way.
Yeah, you are able to.
Well, if I am, then we're going back to the past. We're going right back to 1992. That's where we're going.
And would you be the one that would? All right. So in that case, if you do go back to 1992, would you promote technological advancement
Yes.
to the point it is now? Would you?
Not with the same level of advertisement.
Oh,
But
interesting.
yeah, not with the same level of advertisement because there's some things that the way it was like. For instance, we're being honest about this. When you first came out with the camera phone, right, with the camera attachment, the Sony Ericsson, the T230, whatever it is, right? Nobody was thinking about sending nude pics. That was not something that came up in
That's
your mind.
what you think.
All right then, Joshua. I guess you are one. Well, I wasn't thinking about that, right?
I wasn't even really in existence to be thinking of that, but you are assuming because people have always been risque. There were magazines, you know, and
That's true. The hustler magazines and the stuff,
right?
But I'm just saying.
At this point, now you have the camera in your hand.
But that's the question now. Were the magazines that accessible? Because I can't remember me ever buying a Playboy.
They weren't that accessible. But guess what? But guess what, Alex?
Accessible because of your age.
But guess what, Alex? As it relates to getting a camera attachment, that type of thing, to send that a multimedia would have cost a lot of money. So it definitely was not accessible for anybody to be sending any nude pics. I'm telling you, it wasn't there. Because the phone I had, even though it could take semi-clear photos, to send that to somebody would cost you so much money or data your phone didn't have. If you get what I'm saying.
That's why in those days, because what has not changed in culture, it's just that it has evolved to another level. You always had sugar daddies, and so if you want, you know, if the young lady want to give daddy a heart attack, you know, raise his blood pressure, make him feel a little, you know, on edge, he would pay for it. He would get her the necessary credit to ensure that he can see what he wants to see. You are making an assumption that is right based off your own.
Well, I know for a fact. Even with that being said, it wasn't so prevalent. You can definitely agree on that. It definitely wasn't so prevalent. People weren't trying their best to be doing this. I think the most people got the camera attachment was to hype, as they say. It wasn't even to really even use it. But yeah, That's definitely one thing. Certain promotions and certain things wouldn't happen the way they would have, because you're trying to ensure that people see the goodness in what they need to see the goodness in, and use it for the best things as per your assumption, or what your direction is. But yeah, I would definitely promote it the same, because I've seen the benefit of what technology has become is definitely great. Absolutely, people just abuse it in different ways, and I think the same abuse that people abuse it, you get to find out different things it can do. So through that abuse, you're learning more and learning more. If you can follow what that means. It's like you sending people to prison, and they're now realizing that, to make a tattoo gun, you can have a motor from this thing that you find in a razor, and you can use the suit from the burnt things and a tin to create ink to be able to make tattoos. It makes your mind evolve, that type of stuff. So yeah, I would definitely promote it. I would absolutely promote it. You're saying you wouldn't promote technology? Is a case where you think it has had more a negative effect on how we have progressed as human beings? Is that what you think, Alex?
I think it has progressed us both negatively and positively. I mean, in some cases, with the technological advancements in the medicine field, basically everything we do day to day, computers, all of that, the internet overall, it was a great advancement for man. But at the same time, because of all of this advancement, the openness now allows for more of the bad side to come about. So, of course, cybercrime,
right,
dark websites,
right,
legal purchases of all sorts of different items that people should just not have.
Right.
All of that's been happening. So, yeah, it's a good and a bad. Really, it's been.
But like what Josh said before, in anything, you have disadvantages and advantages. So, you kind of go and take it or you leave it. But of course, definitely delving into this stuff, it has been quite a very decent conversation. I can definitely say we jumped right into it. The time flew without even me realizing that it was, this amount of time we had been diving into this. But of course, in closing, we can say culture has definitely, been influencing us as people and the world around us, definitely, as the name suggests. And I know that anyone listening to this can definitely just chime in, what they think about what culture has done, what they're feeling about the culture that we're now living in, the new age, all the topics that we have listed in the description. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this video. Share it on all social media platforms. You can find our handles in the description. And of course, leave a comment, say hello, give us a topic to talk about. We're kind of running out here. And of course, for your next upcoming episode after this, when you should be hearing this, the next one you should be getting to hear is the one about our sex part 2, where we have our lovely ladies join us to get into that deep conversation. But of course, from us here in the studio, from me, Ryan, Josh, and Alex, thank you for listening to our podcast on culture. Please enjoy the rest of your night.